So my point is, when it comes to photography, and you can apply this to many different businesses and arenas, is that I look at photography now as that competition's irrelevant now.
Okay.
And you can apply this in many ways. And when you say that to a photographer, they look at me with about ready to punch me in the head because, what do you mean? The person walking down the street, as you point out, with their iPhone is competition. It's taking work away. It's like, no, there is no need for us anymore. Of course, that's a lie, but in the sense of there is so much competition that it's irrelevant. So you have only one competitor, and that is you. And your job is to develop your brand, and your brand is your reputation. And your job with your reputation and your brand is to develop the community of people who actually care about what you do and what you want. In other words, don't go out chasing. When people call me and say, we want you to bid on our project, I will often say no, or just hand it off to one of my team members and say, just put in our bid and forget about it because we're not going to get it. Because somebody who wants a photographer is not who I'm going after. I want somebody who wants me.
Okay.
That's who I want. And so I have to do the work to find the community of people who want my style of work. Because the honest truth is, you can get a photographer anywhere for anything. If you want my style, what I do, that is my job. So
you can't be a commodity anymore.
Exactly right. And so if you're out there bidding on everything, whenever you start bidding, you're a commodity because the only way you're going to win on that bid is to be the lowest price. And if it's going to be about if you want to stay in business, you have to charge your price.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Career Pulse Podcast, your vital sign for career and business from everyday go-getters like you. We are now on episode 2 of season 2, and I actually would like to welcome the one and only Rosh Sillers. Rosh Sillers owns Rosh Group, Inc., also known as Rosh Media. It's a creative media company. Rosh is a veteran photographer and marketing consultant with a media background. Rosh actually specializes in people, food, and interior photography for his marketing and media clients. His consulting and speaking expertise includes digital marketing, strategy, search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, and social media. What we're going to get into with this episode is based around his early beginnings. He started his first podcast over the internet in 1999 on business tips hosted on the Rosh.com website. His first social media business relationship began in 1997. Sillers also co-hosted the Prosperous Artist podcast and blog with writer Dean Ludacour beginning in March of 2007. Rosh combined his two passions, new media and photography, to host the newmediaphotographer.com. Rosh continues to podcast and blog at roshsillers.com. He's the author of 4 books, The 1 Hour Photographer, 2 Wiley Digital Field Guides, and the co-author of the LinkedIn Photographer's Guide to Marketing and Social Media, published by Cengage Learning in May 2010. Also, Rosh is still an active, verified champion of the social media platform Twitter. He also focuses his energy on the growth of his 2 YouTube channels. Now, what we break down in this episode and why you should listen is that we talk about the discipline of routine to make you successful as a creative, especially starting in the morning. We cover strategies around, instead of working late, start early, forcing yourself to work up until a deadline, then take the rest of the day off, instead of, just the idea of being productive versus dragging your day out. We talk about the reality that everyone is where they've gotten to because they asked, and we kind of touch more on that. We also dive into just the importance of focus on high, narrow niches when it comes to establishing yourself as an authority. We talk about the theory on how competition is irrelevant nowadays and why we talk about the only one competitor you have. And also we talk about the combination code, the mentality of the long game, and just having fun along the way, being able to laugh at yourself, through the trying times that come, few and far in between. And also the power of not thinking, and we actually discussed that theory. And also the hard lesson behind the theory of it takes 4 years to come back. And we explain a lot more about that too. So everybody help me welcome the one and only Rosh Sillers.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Career Pulse Podcast, your vital sign for career and business from everyday go-getters like you. I'm joined today with the one and only Rosh Sillars. Rosh, how are you today?
Wonderful. Hey, thanks for having me here.
All right, good to have you. Well, let's go ahead and hop right on in. I know you're a busy guy. You have a lot going on, and just want to kind of dive in here. Now, Rosh, what do you typically tell people when they ask you what you do?
It's kind of a two-part question. When people ask me what I do, these days I say I own a media company. Mm-hmm. But, if you ask my friends what I do, they tell everyone I'm a photographer, which I am, which has been my career as a photographer, but it's broadened over time, and it's a lot easier just to put it under the umbrella, I own a media company.
Very well put, because, once again, that's a good way to kind of branch over to different things. And could you tell us, Rosh, a little bit about your early beginnings in photography growing up, since that was your foundation? Kind of dive in deep with us there.
Sure. My family's been in media, as long as I can remember. And my dad was a weatherman, but he was big into photography, and we had a darkroom in our house. And I was always fascinated by it. And my dad encouraged me, and went into high school, and I had a great opportunity with a great instructor, great program, and ended up coming out of high school as one of the top photographers in the country. And so I had the opportunity to continue on in my education, did that, got right into the newspapers immediately, and continued on, and made it I had a choice. I also won marketing contests or awards during that time, but I decided to follow my art and take on the marketing side a little bit later. Kind of ran parallel with my career.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, when you first took on photography, did you take it through school or just self-taught, just like School of Hard Knocks?
Yeah, no, it was in high school. It was 3 years of a really good photography program. It was one class, but it was a really good instructor I'm in touch with today, actually. His name's Jack Summers, and he was excellent. There's a lot of good photographers through the years who've come out of his classes. Mm-hmm. And from there, I went to CCS, Center for Creative Studies, and my degree's in photography. Mm-hmm. And I did that while working in the newspapers. Okay. And so we're always learning day by day. In School of Hard Knocks, absolutely. Right. we always make mistakes and have to learn. We often learn some of our best lessons just on your own, doing your thing.
Right, and there's never one only path,
Right, absolutely.
Okay. Now, what does a day in the life of Rosh look like from the time you wake up until you go to bed?
Fortunate for me, it's different every day, but there's some consistencies which need to be there. But for me, I'm up early. My wife gets up early. So I am up, maybe 5 a.m., and we go work out. Then I come back, and then I start working on usually the marketing stuff, marketing client. Maybe I might have a little editing to do. Okay. And then my day will be a combination of marketing, strategy development, doing some of the work with pay-per-click, doing some of the SEO work, meetings, then photography, and then video, and doing my YouTube channel. So it's a combination of many different things depending on the day. Okay. But it's always different, always has something new. But I try to keep as much routine as possible. As a creative person, I hate routine, but I know that I also know I need routine.
The discipline behind it.
To be successful. So I make sure I have a little bit of that in there. And so, but if I do it too much, if it's like too much of the same thing too many days in a row, I gotta
right,
I got to shake things up a little bit, which I do, and it works.
I hear you. It took me a little while to learn that lesson. A little later.
So, these days I try to be done by 6 o'clock because I have a family, and I've learned the hard way that as an entrepreneur, as an independent person, you can work 24 hours a day if you allow it, and sometimes instead of working late, I start early. And that way it doesn't affect my family quite as much. Not that I say it never does, but, you try to, if you give yourself a time frame to get it all done, you'll get it done. If you just let it say, I just keep working until it's all done, well, then it never gets done.
Never get done.
It's midnight and you're not doing it. So you become a little more efficient that way.
So it took you a while to kind of finally discover, okay, I just need a deadline cutoff versus, this next task, or let this be the last task, but it may take another 1 or 2 hours.
Right, right, yeah. And people even getting into their own business or even career, developing their career, and sometimes things are a little slow in the beginning.
Okay.
I will often say, look, work until noon and then take the rest of the day off, because that will force you to get really good at that time. You say, I'm done at noon, so I got to get everything done I need to get done by noon. Rather than just dragging it all out all day long.
Drudgery.
Well, no, just dragging it out, meaning you're not being very productive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into this habit of not being productive. If you just say, look, I have so much work in the day, and it's early in the game, there's not a lot, I'm done at noon. And that works, because now you're forcing yourself to be highly productive until noon, and then you're done. And eventually it'll be 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Next thing you know, you have a full day going.
Instead of just busy.
Instead of just being busy. Exactly. There are a lot of very unsuccessful people that are very busy.
That's a good point. Now, I wasn't aware you also specialize in the area, as far as photography goes, of people, food, and interior.
Yeah.
Can you specify a little bit about that? What led to that sort of niche?
Yeah, it's actually rather interesting. When obviously I started off in the newspapers, and then I got into magazines and even published magazines, say in the late 90s, early 2000s. And if you think about it, people, food, and interiors, that's a restaurant. I had to shoot a lot of food. I had to shoot the interiors, and I had to photograph the chef or the managing people at the place. And I did a lot of that. Okay. And it just kind of spun off into a specialty of those three things. And I continue to do. I do a lot of food today. Food is a big one for me, but I do all three. I do a lot of corporate portraiture and so forth. So, yeah.
Nice. So, like, when you got into that space, it just more so came naturally just because they were kind of like just sort of natural?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly had to learn, especially on the food side,
okay,
in lighting, and develop my own styles. What really took it all to the next level is when I started bringing in stylists. I have a stylist named Ross who's excellent. He's become very good actually in the area. He's very much in demand now. He's an excellent stylist.
Food stylist?
Yeah.
He arranges the food?
Yeah, exactly. He has all the tricks, and he makes the stuff look good. Now, my job is obviously the lighting and composition and the overall vision, but he does a great job at putting all that together. So that took it to the next level. So I guess what I learned there, even interiors, I mean, working with interior designers, that's great. If you're in fashion, I do a lot of corporate business portraiture.
Okay.
But if, for example, some of my studio mates, they're more into fashion, and they always have makeup people and stylists to help them out, and that really helps make their images look good. So it's good that was a good lesson to really understand that having good people around you will help you as a whole make your look and your work better.
Okay, very, very good point. Now, tell us about your other current work in, you touched on it a little bit earlier, digital marketing strategy, SEO, and pay-per-click advertising.
Right. So, as I mentioned before, coming out of high school, I mean, we're talking years ago, I also had awards in marketing, and I always enjoyed the media. the storytelling. If you really think about it, what I do as a photojournalist, as a photographer, is storytelling, and so is marketing and storytelling, and that all works together. And during the downturn, as many people have talked about, about 2008 is where everybody's turn in life seemed to be.
Yeah, where. I mean, that's where it got real.
Yeah, it did. And as far as I was concerned, advertising photography was just going down the tubes and was not coming back. Digital just changed everything, and I thought this is it. And so, one of my networking partners and I. Just in 2009 started working together, and I said, hey, we started talking, and I said, hey, I'm starting to work with photographers in social media. I'm getting involved in social media. I'm starting to speak on the topic, and I think you need a social media consultant. And he was a small firm, one-man shop, and he's like, I think you're right. And so we decided to grow his company. So we spent 5 years growing his company, and so I learned all areas on a practical level. So I was able to, during that time, between say really 2008 and 2013, I taught social media at the university level. I've spoke around the world. I wrote books, and I've done it from small companies, mom and pops, to the U.S. government, and just really understanding all the different areas. And many people focus in one specific area, but I've been in it long enough and have just used it all in my businesses that I really do understand how it all works together. This search engine optimization, the pay-per-click, the social media. And so, I work in all areas and develop those strategies and actually do some of the work.
Okay, well, just curious, since we're on the subject, this kind of came out of, I guess, I want to say left field, but I'm just thinking, like, when it comes to social media and really understanding the algorithms and companies you're working with, how much would you say psychology or human behavior kind of goes into working on social media, and how would you say some of those would tie into how you work with social media? Do you ever feel like a lot of what working with social media, how people react and what people care about, has something to do with that? Or?
Psychology? Oh, absolutely. I mean, headlines and psychology, just in the headlines alone, is huge. I mean, just understanding what people react to is important. But remember, it's relationships overall. Okay. And it's about people. So social media is about people, and if people are a part of your business, well, then social media can be a really good place for you. But one of the things people often ask related to social media, what is it that you need to do to make it all work? And here's the bottom line. There are a couple really important things. But first, more is better. Okay. Now, everybody said, wait a minute. Now, with that statement, there's like 1,000 people just said, but what about quality? I said, quality is awesome too. It's more is better to the point in which quality drops off. So give it your very best. So if you're able, let's just sake of argument, we have XYZ social media platform. If you're able to post once a day consistently at the highest level of your quality, I mean, obviously you can only do your best, then just do it once a day. But twice a day would be better if you could keep up the same amount of quality. So what I'm saying is you do as much as you can at the highest level you can possibly do it at until it goes on. And that really is activity, being active, being engaged, being out there. That's just the key.
Yeah, that's a good point too, especially when you mentioned a lot of what you talked about. I think especially too, just from what I've been learning the past few years, also a lot of buzzwords you guys use, like maybe attraction marketing, adding value as far as like, doing it as often as you can, but making sure it's at the highest level.
Right. And you have to be different. Yeah. I mean, niche today is so important. Let me give you a great example. Yeah. So I have 2 YouTube channels. Okay. Right? Yeah. One is a general channel on business and marketing. And one day I'm talking SEO, the next day I'm talking social media. I call this the wide, slow road of growth. Okay. I mean, I have 700 and some subscribers on the channel. Okay. I'm doing it for a year, okay? Not a huge number. Nobody is going to be, writing big articles on me for that specific thing. But it's growing. It's solid, at a slow. Now, I have another channel that I just started in November, which is growing way faster, but it's on pricing for photographers. It's a very narrow niche. That's going to grow faster and is growing faster and growing parallel. We won't get deep into the algorithm on that, but they do work together. But yeah, it's growing faster because it's very focused niche. And so some people think sometimes the niche is too narrow. You're better off with a highly narrow niche.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, totally your thing. And I struggle even with my other channel. I want it to grow a little faster, but it's my place to just share ideas, and it is what it is, and I know what the result will be because of the way I'm approaching that channel. So,
okay, because definitely niching was a really good point you made as well. Because I mean, I kind of found that being a creative and being in media and video, it did take me a while to kind of find my own niche, even though I don't think I'm quite there yet. I mean, once again,
it's a process.
Yeah, I'm in film and video, but at the same time, like taking my second career in finance, I found that I learned a lot of business and a lot of things that I can apply toward the area of film and video.
Right.
So I'm finding my own niche as well, but I think it's a really great point because some people spread themselves too thin and try and do everything.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, everyone goes through the process. You'll fail a number of times. Use what I like to refer to as the combination code. Combine something with your core. Your core is what you are, what you're best. For example, photography. Okay, it was my core. Right. Well, I combined the concepts of digital marketing, social media, most social media at the time, and developed a brand called New Media Photographer at the time. And that's what took me to the national, international level. Okay. So during this social media boom, You know, I could have tried to be the next social media guru, but you know, there are enough people out there
Right.
doing that.
More than enough.
But
Yeah.
but combining it with the photography side and being the social media guy for photographers, or one of the few, rather than, you know, being at the head of the table, at least I had a seat at the table on a national level. And so that really helped, just niching that down in that way. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Okay. Now tell us a little bit about your some of your early days in internet podcasting.
Sure.
Before like the big splash of the mid to late 2000s. How do you think that medium compares to now? Are there things that you like or don't like about how the landscape's evolved in the past?
Well, I
few
think
years?
it's great right now. I mean, it got hot, and mid to late 2000s, and then it kind of died off, and then it came back, and it's wonderful. I mean, we need the audio, we need text, we need blogs, we need audio, we need video, and different people consume media differently, and it gives people. I mean, I don't want to watch YouTube videos while I'm working out. I like to listen, so I like to listen to podcasts. But there are times I want to watch, and so sometimes I'm reading. Everybody has their way, and so back then, we're using real audio is what I was using back in 1999, and I hosted them on my Rosh.com site, and that was great, and it worked. But it was a lot of work, and I did that a year and a half, and then I just kind of put it on pause. And actually, a couple of friends of mine consulted with me about what I had done, and they were hearing about this iTunes thing, and they started podcasting in maybe 03, 04, and then a couple of years later, like, you should really get back into this, and so I did, and I started listening to podcasts and said I got to get back into this, and that was it. So 07, I jumped back in, and I've been going ever since.
So you never feel like, man, there's too many podcasts out here. Do you ever feel like
No. I mean, look, there's only a small percentage of people who actually do the creation, right? So, and there are millions and millions, billions of people. So I don't think we could. I mean, there's always going to be competition. I think the best way to explain it, if you really want to talk about competition, let's talk photography again.
Oh, yeah.
Who's not a photographer? You could, if you screamed down
I just
the
got
street.
my iPhone 10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Even Apple's,
Right.
commercials are about how the
That never gets to you a
painting.
little bit, like all of a sudden,
my
there's a
studio-
12-year-old, all of a sudden,
Oh,
they're on Instagram, like, a month later, they have like 10 million followers
right.
because they're just looking so cute doing the little.
But here's the thing. There it is. So my point is, when it comes to photography, and you can apply this to many different businesses and arenas, is that I look at photography now as that competition's irrelevant now.
Okay.
And you can apply this in many ways. And when you say that to a photographer, they look at me with about ready to punch me in the head because, what do you mean? The person walking down the street, as you point out, with their iPhone is competition. It's taking work away. Say, no, there is no need for us anymore. Of course, that's a lie. But in the sense of there is so much competition that it's irrelevant. So you have only one competitor, and that is you. And your job is to develop your brand, and your brand is your reputation. And your job with your reputation and your brand is to develop the community of people who actually care about what you do and what you want. In other words, don't go out chasing. When people call me and say, we want you to bid on our project, I will often say no, or just hand it off to one of my team members, say, just put in our bid and forget about it because we're not going to get it. Because somebody who wants a photographer is not who I'm going after. I want somebody who wants me.
Okay.
That's who I want. And so I have to do the work to find the community of people who want my style of work. Because the honest truth is, you can get a photographer anywhere for anything. If you want my style, what I do, that is my job. So
you can't be a commodity anymore.
Exactly right. And so if you're out there bidding on everything, whenever you start bidding, you're a commodity because the only way you're going to win on that bid is to be the lowest price. And if it's going to be about if you want to stay in business, you have to charge your price. I mean, one of my favorite stories when not too long ago, I think it was within the last year, my studio mate came in. He's like, I just got this job. It was really great. He bid. He was like in the middle of the road. Let's say, sake of argument, these aren't the exact numbers, but say he bid $5,000, for a day or something, or a couple of days to photograph something. It's like, wow, that's pretty good. He's like, yeah, there's some people that were lower, but there's one person who bid $50,000, and they obviously didn't get the job.
Right.
And he's just laughing. He's like, $50,000. Why would? The fact is, that person gets $50,000 jobs. Otherwise, he wouldn't be bidding it.
Right.
They get those. Now, they know they're not going to get a lot, but they're going to get a few. And how many do you really need, right? I mean,
exactly.
when you can command $50,000, now maybe the agency said, hey, we want this person. They said, well, it's $50,000 a day. I mean, that's it. And so the point is, do we really need $50,000 photographers? With so many photographers, how in the world could somebody be charging it? Well, how in the world could my roommate be charging $5,000? Right. My studio mate, $5,000 for. I mean, how can I charge thousands of dollars a day per image?
Is there demand in the marketplace and what value they bring? So
it's all about that value. It's all about your brand. The difference between me and the photographer next to me, and how much we get paid is the brand we developed.
Very good point. Very good point. Now, tell us about the writer's journey of your 4 different books. I know you mentioned, obviously, your photography was your foundation. Then once we got into the late 2000s, social media uprising, you were able to turn that niche toward the social media landscape.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what your 4 books entail.
So the first book was Digital Marketing, Social Media for Photographers. The online guide, online, I'm just blanking.
It's all good, man.
I don't even know the man. It's digital marketing for photographers. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that was 2010, 8 years ago. See, am I supposed to remember this? And then from there, after that, I wrote my own book. I did a self-published book.
Okay.
And my goal from there was that I wanted to work for Wiley. I don't know why. I just did. I had a few things. I had three goals.
Is Wiley a firm?
Wiley's one of the big publishers.
Okay.
It's a major publisher, and for some reason I wanted to write a book for them. And so I took that book and I sent it to them. Actually, I looked on LinkedIn and to see if I could find the editor that I needed, the acquisition editor, and I did. I found the right acquisition editor. It's through LinkedIn, so I couldn't get in touch with her there. So I went to Facebook and connected with her there, and then said, "Hey, are you the right person?" She said, "Yes." Okay, well, I have an idea, and she said, "All right, consider us your publisher." She had known of my other work, so I have to qualify that. She had seen my other books and my other book, and so I pitched it, and they said politely no.
Okay.
And
don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Is there anything else?" I said, "Well, one chapter in there is called the combination code, which we talked about earlier."
Okay.
And I said, I would really like to write a book on the combination code. Say, well, write that out. Tell me, how you would turn that into a book. And so I wrote all that out, sent it to her, and they sat on it. And then eventually she called me back, said, "Hey, would you mind writing another book for us, a different book?" And they got me involved in the Digital Field Guide series. And so I wrote that on the Canon T4i, which allowed me to photograph and take images, show people how to take really nice images with that camera. And then I did the T5i and decided, you know what, I'm done with that.
Okay.
And so we did no more of those. And so there we go. So I have those 4 books. And so you could get them in the bookstores. It's kind of nice. Go walk through the aisles and see my books in the bookstore, and that was fun. So I am my 5th, but that quite hasn't happened yet. So
so it's still in the works, or you're thinking about
off and on. Well, the honest truth is I'm really developing that YouTube channel to develop the audience for that next book.
Okay.
And so when that takes off, and the YouTube channel is honestly, when I started, it was a 3-4 year project. So I'm only just into the 2nd year of that project. So I know it's a long-term thing. So I'm hoping if by the 3rd or 4th year, I'll have the audience that I feel confident that what I do, what I create, there'll be an audience for it.
Okay, we'll just have to stay tuned on that. And then you can obviously give us the name of the channel and all that other stuff towards the end. We can keep updated on that. Now, what do you do to keep your finger on the pulse of your career? In other words, what is your own way of staying on the cutting edge of your industry, so to speak?
Sure. Well, it's a lot of reading. It's listening to podcasts. It's watching videos, what other people are doing. Different people have some really focus niches that are helpful. I use Feedly specifically to follow blogs.
Is that an app?
It's
Feedly?
Yeah, you can get it, put it on your browser.
Okay.
Feedly.com. You can get it on an app on your phone, and it allows you to follow websites, especially blogs. You just put in that website, and if it has regular updated blog posts, it'll just bring it to you. So, in other words, rather than you going to the web comes to you.
Okay.
And it can be, and I itemize it, business and marketing and photography, and so I can keep up to date with what is happening on a regular basis. And that way, I'm not spending hours and hours and hours, going through the web. I can just cruise through the headlines and figure out what it is, I want to. And that's really what I've always done. Before that, it was Google Reader. And so I would just keep up to date on everything. And of course, Google shut that down, but Feedly kind of stepped up to the plate. And that's a great way to go. And then, of course, my subscriptions to YouTube and podcasts. So.
Okay. So in a way, you have your own little tools to really curate and kind of, filter which ones you like, which ones you don't.
Exactly.
Kind of took me back to Google Plus right there.
Yeah,
You said
right.
Google Reader.
Yeah.
Yep. So, how have you ever come across great ideas from other industries you may have never expected to apply that you were able to implement toward your own trade?
Sure. I mean, that's certainly part of the core of the combination code, combining different things. And I often recommend looking at other industries. And I think maybe the way I do business, I think that has been really important. Just looking at other industries, how people just run their businesses has been very helpful to me. Looking at other types of photography, looking at, I don't do fashion, but keeping an eye on fashion photography and see how I could apply that to maybe some of the work that I'm doing.
Keep your finger on the pulse there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Continuously keep an eye on what is happening, keeping up to date. I mean, if you keep up with it regularly, you won't feel like you're falling behind. I mean, the fact is, all this stuff continues to splinter out into more and more areas, and you can't be an expert on everything. I mean, when we first started, say, with social media, I mean, we had Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. There you go. That's all. Now it just keeps splintering out, and then the algorithms and then the advertising and then the analytics, and so at some point you have to say, okay, I'm not going to now follow the trends. I mean, I can code, I can write a website from top to bottom, do some JavaScript, but now do I want to get into AI and understanding how to work with that system? I mean, that's a whole specialty. If I tried that, that would be tough. I mean, that would take a lot of time. Just as an example. So sometimes you have to just set your boundaries and focus on your area. Unless you feel like it's going off a cliff or something, and, then you could take the AI track if you wanted to.
You still keep an eye on the overall marathon, but you're still running your own race at the end of the day.
Yeah, well put.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I mean, especially with staying on top of trades and publications. At least me myself, I always at least read the trades and publications at least once a week as far as different blogs and sort of things. I don't know if you get my it's called the Financial Filmmaker blog.
I get that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, so once again, that started from me coming from film.
Right.
And then obviously when I took my second career in finance, my bread and butter pays the bills.
Yep.
I was exposed to a lot of personal growth, a lot of business, a lot of finance. And I once again saw those parallels that you mentioned from different industries. And I found that it really put me in a place to where, okay, I was able to start developing a niche. So I wasn't just another kind of camera operator. Here's my camera. This is how much I get hired. I was able to take that and say, okay, I'm learning all this. Well, let me put some of this out here, start putting out some content, because I know there's different things here that people can apply, from this different industry. So definitely good point you mentioned there. Now, Rosh, how important do you feel is the area of time management? We touched on this a little earlier where you kind of talked about your day.
Right.
Are you big on time blocking? Is there a certain app you always use?
No.
Personally,
I don't use apps. I do believe in, kind of, you talk time blocking, or just as I mentioned before, somebody doesn't have a lot of work to do, to just say, okay, then I have 3 hours to get what I do have to do done, and then give yourself permission to take the rest of the day off. Now, trust me, you start getting a little success under your belt, that diminishes, and you long for the days which you could take the afternoon off. But in the beginning, it teaches you what to do. And yes, sometimes I have a project where I know, look, I have a lot to do. I'm just say, 2 hours is all I have to do this.
Okay.
But I kind of keep that routine. I think routine is very important. I think most successful people have a basic routine, at least to start the day. From there, the day can go many different directions, and it's just up to your management skills from that point. But at least have something to give you a foundation, a good base. So for some people, it's exercise in the morning. Some people, it's meditation, and then they do maybe a certain task in their business each day. For maybe some people, they look at their books and see, okay, where's everything for the day? Or they look at their calendar. What do I need to do? So they have 2, 3, 4, 5 things that they do every morning to get the day going, and then know that from that point you just make decisions the rest of your day. But at least you have a foundation.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. I just want to touch on that because I know there's a lot of morning routine books out there. I think one that kind of really impacted me early on was called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And basically he went around studying different entrepreneurs from Robert Kiyosaki. And when you mentioned about just making sure that your day will go different paths, but at least getting a routine done in the morning, that's the most important part. And he has this acronym called the Lifesavers. I think S is for, I forgot what the first S is. A is affirmations.
You're talking to the guy who forgot the name of his own book. So
it's the Lifesavers, but I forgot what the first S was. A is for affirmations, V is for visualization, E is for exercise, R is for reading, and then I think S is, I forgot what the 2 S's were. Yeah. But either way it goes, I think, obviously Rosh is talking about having a good morning routine that's structured, and then, of course, letting your day go from there.
Yeah, and it doesn't, I don't, hopefully people don't get the misperception that it has to be the whole morning. I mean, it could be the first hour of your morning, maybe the first 2 hours of the morning.
Mine stretches to about maybe 2 hours.
Sure.
Well, about an hour and a half.
Yeah. Whatever's right for you. Now, some people need their whole day organized like that. That's right for them. That's their comfort zone. That's where they are, and that's fine too.
Okay.
But because everybody's different. I mean, everybody has their thing. I went to art school, okay? You can't keep me in a box very long.
Right.
So, but I do need that foundation. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of freelance people, especially entrepreneurs even, are they're their own person. They're not very good employees. I'm not a very good employee.
Yeah.
I'm
so too.
Yeah, so it's tough. So if you could, but you do have to have some kind of base to get you going, as we're just saying.
Okay. Now, we're just going to hop into a few little lightning questions real quick.
Sure.
Favorite books or podcasts? Give us a couple.
Sure. Let's see. Favorite books. I've always liked some of the classics of Good to Great, Blue Ocean Strategy. Podcast. Authors, Seth Godin. Those are really your standards these days. Podcasts, Marketing Over Coffee is an excellent one when it comes to marketing. Photo Focus, I know Richard Harrington, and they have had some good stuff through the years. Actually, I hate to say it out loud. I'm pretty sure that they're still doing this show. But there's I think for the most part, these days, what I've been watching and doing has mostly been YouTube people.
Okay.
I really have been watching and even connecting with a lot of YouTubers who help other YouTubers. Tim Schmoyer and Brian G. Johnson are a couple names, Nick Nimmin. These are people that...
YouTube influencers?
Yeah. Owen Hemsath. I'm actually doing a collaboration with him coming up.
Owen Hemsath?
Owen Video is what he's known as. And so these are folks who help other people grow their channels, and I've been involved with them, and so I've been pretty much eyeball deep into YouTube the last year and a half, really figuring and working this out, and I've been able to work with my clients and help them with YouTube because of that, and that's one of the reasons why I do it is I get involved in any of these social elements or any of these pay-per-click and understanding how to do it all, just so I can help my clients. But I do it for me first, prove I can do it, and then I transfer it over to my clients.
Okay. Now, any favorite films that kind of speak out to you? Maybe classics to maybe something you saw recently. Anything that
I have some. It was what we call family movies, just because
they either inspire you or you just sit back and Netflix and chill.
Yeah, well, family movies because it was. I like watching River Runs Through It for the fact that it was part of it was actually my family helped make the movie, so and so part of it was filmed on Family Land. So that's sentimental, but it's a fun movie. But Christmas Vacation is probably the best one for all of us. Okay. So every year,
yeah. Classic Chevy Chase.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's probably not the kind of answer that people would be expecting. It's not too
right. It doesn't
deep.
have to be like the most serious.
No. I'm certainly a Star Wars fan, so we're not going to get any deeper than this.
Right. We don't have to go
It's
into
entertainment for me, and that's I guess if there's anything to come out of this part of the conversation is you need a release sometimes,
right?
Just to let go of that stuff. It can't be serious all the time. You will burn yourself out and fail. This stuff is the long game. As we're talking, it is the long game. And if you don't give yourself a break once in a while and just watch those goofy things I just talked about, getting into the Star Wars, watching, the National Lampoon movies and anything else that's stupid, make yourself laugh. Enjoy each moment, each of these moments along the way. You're going to appreciate it all that much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point because I think definitely a lot of people get caught up on like the destination versus the journey, and it'll eat you up.
Here, let me share one of my favorite stories, and I've shared this a few times through the years in various podcasts and talks. It's about Lewis and Clark, and I believe it's Lewis who discovered the Continental Divide. Mm-hmm. Lewis and Clark, they're the great adventurers from our history who went across the United States. And when Lewis was sitting at the top of the Continental Divide, quote, discovered it, of course, the native people were well aware of what was going on.
Exactly.
But, the people of the New Americas discovered this, but he was sitting there. I think he was in his 20s, 27, something like that, on the cusp of becoming one of the greatest known adventurers that we still talk about today. Sat down and wrote in his journal, is all this worth it? Is what I'm doing worth it? Is there any value to what I do in life? Basically is what he was saying.
Self-doubt creeping in.
Self-doubt, exactly. What am I going to do after this? The point being is that we all go through that at all. We don't always realize where we are in the process. So it really is important to appreciate every moment along the way because too many people fail, and we see this all the time in, say, sports or people who meet. We're in the Olympics right now. I mean, think about it. This is perfect, where in terms of this conversation, how many of these athletes are going to hit gold, and a year from now you're going to hear about their crash and burn.
Yep.
Why is that? Because they had nothing afterwards. They had no goal after their goal. You need to have goals after your goals. And you need to have goals along the way. There's nothing wrong. Something like an Olympic athlete has to have that one big single goal, but most of us don't. Yeah. I like to have 2 or 3 going at all the time. At least that way I have a goal after my goal, and I don't hit that goal and say, now what? Because a lot of times people say, I need all this money. Okay, you got the money. Now what? You're really unhappy. Yeah. You're not. Where are you going?
They tie their whole identity to that one goal.
Exactly.
And it's not even tangible. You have it, but it's not like, exactly. What's next?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So let that all be along the way. Appreciate the little moments along the way because you do not want to end up, 10, 20, 30, 40 years saying, wow, I got here, I almost got here, or I didn't get here, and I was miserable the whole way. Was that worth it? Because if you're miserable the whole way, you'll be miserable when you're there too.
Yeah, good point. Great point. Now, tell me a little bit about some of your mentors, maybe living or dead, and why do you look up to them?
Sure. Obviously, my father was a big influence through the years. The photography side. My stepmother. She was a writer in the journalism world, and
your dad was a photographer.
He was a weatherman actually.
Oh yeah, you told me.
Yeah, he's for many years, and then Jack Summers, who I mentioned earlier, he helped on the photo side. Okay. But I learned so much just from chatting with people, and learning. I go to say networking events, or when I go speaking around the country, or to different countries and talking to people and hearing their stories. I've learned so much that I've been able to add and to improve what I do. To think that I have all the answers is ridiculous. I have to ask those questions and apply what I can use. Just keep applying what other people have learned to my life and continue to improve. So, yeah, I've never. A lot of people do ask me these facts. Who's your favorite photographer? I'm like.
Broad.
I've never followed a photographer. I mean, there are a few photojournalists that I really do appreciate, and sometimes they've been local photojournalists, and sometimes they've been, icons, and I've been fortunate to meet a few of them through the years through my speaking, and we're like on the same bill kind of thing, and so to be able to go out afterwards and just chat about these iconic photographs that they created. That was pretty amazing stuff through the years. And I'm grateful for that. And I learned a little something from them too. But to say that I learned anything more from them than I would learn from somebody that I just met, today, I don't think that's true. It's all in what I take from, what I learn and apply. And if I apply it, and I think some people make the mistake to think just because that person is, this 40-year icon, that what they say is going to be more fruitful if you apply it to their life than somebody else who has good success and has been through the grind, or even maybe even trying to do what you're doing and taking their thoughts too and apply it. And
like there's someone you could learn from everybody instead of everybody kind of crowding the celebrity walking through the door. Right. The guy at the cocktail bar, he may teach you one nugget that turns around your career like that.
Kind of funny, a lot of I've been the photographer for a lot of people, a lot of situations, from like Jay Leno, politicians. I've photographed presidents and pop stars and all across the board. And I always found it, rather than going after I always look for the people around them,
the publicist, the assistant,
the wives. I remember I have sat down with more or even husbands of famous people, just sat down with them, like everybody's over here and I'm getting the real scoop over here. Right. It's amazing. And I've always
people never think like
and you really get the insight, and because they're ignored. They're ignored. I mean, the experience I have with my dad being a local TV guy, we couldn't go to the mall. And we couldn't, so we always had to go to the same place. Otherwise, people would be, interrupting us. And, that's normal. You expect it. But I always remember my stepmom talking about how, people would just talk to him and totally ignore her. Just totally ignore her like she wasn't even there. Yeah. And I took that to heart. And I said, a lot of these people like someone to talk to. So I embraced that. And like I said, I learned so much. I mean, because these people have something to share too. So.
And a lot of those people got them there.
Yeah, they were the support. Yeah.
They're the. So, what do you do to grow, whether spiritually, mentally, or health-wise on a daily basis? I know we mentioned the morning routine, mixing the book up. Yeah. But, give us a couple little tidbits.
Well, for me, exercise has been good. I have to thank my wife for that. She had her job. She's in the medical field and has to be at work by 7. So if there's any real reason, let's be honest. Why am I up at 5 in the morning? Because my wife needs to be up at 5 in the morning. But I take advantage of it. We go work out, and then I get to work. But then, meditation is very helpful to clear the mind, to keep focus. I think meditation, for some people, it's prayer. Whatever works best for you, just that silence and clearing your head, it helps you make better decisions throughout the day. Okay. By, just that, I think too many people have so much going on in their head, they don't realize the power of not thinking for a little while and just clearing all that junk out and just sit there and not think, whether it's for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. And believe it or not, it'll just set your day up, and it will help you make much better decisions.
Great point, because I need to actually get better at that as well, just having silence, because sometimes I forget what that even feels like.
Yeah, sometimes after a while, you keep a book next to you, and some of the best ideas will come out of that. And if you think you're going to remember that later, you're wrong. keep that book next to you, write that great idea down, and just put it back, go back to not thinking.
Great point. Now, Do you ever find yourself struggling, or once in a while maybe having that temptation, comparing yourself to other people's success?
Absolutely. I think we all do. I mean, the answer is don't ever do that. Just think, and but just we just mentioned before about there is no more competition.
Right.
All right. So there's no more competition. You only focus on developing your own brand. However, there's nothing wrong with looking at others, in my case, photographers, for influence. You know, and look at what they're doing and learn from them, but don't. You're going to have that moment of, man, how'd they get there so quickly? Everybody has their own path.
It seeps in a little bit.
I think a good example of that is on YouTube. A lot of times people say, wow, how did that person, I mean, I started my YouTube channel a year ago and I'm this far, and this person came along and they're like 20 times further 3 months in. How did they do that? Well, you don't know the story behind them. One, did they have a different social media platform that they've already had success on? Maybe it's their personality. Maybe they just have a personality trait, that you just don't. I mean, you just have to face it. You have to embrace who you are and take what you have and go. Maybe they have money to back them, to push them through. But it's common. People have blogs. People have Vine. How many Viners went to YouTube and just blew it up?
A couple of them made it.
Yeah.
Everybody didn't make the trip.
So you don't always know the story of why that person. So don't compare, because you don't know the whole story. And so now you're comparing something that you think you know, but you really don't know. And so just focus on yours. Get inspiration. Maybe try and figure out something that they did that you
reverse
can apply.
engineer something.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that, but don't get upset. Otherwise, I would have quit a long time ago.
You and me both. Now, what would you say were some of your biggest setbacks or failures, and how did you overcome and learn from those lessons?
Yeah, I've had two big areas in which I had to really restart. And we kind of hinted at one, 2008. Obviously, that's everybody's. How many times have you run into something? Yeah, right. In 2009, I made the career change. I mean, it's like a story we run into continuously, and I'm certainly one of those folks. Fortunately, photography came back for me, because doing what I do allows for photography to work for me and have a great photo career along with my marketing.
Okay.
But when I started. My first podcast, my favorite story is setting up those three goals that we mentioned before. And for me, my three goals when I first flipped the switch to my podcast were: one, I wanted to start, I wanted to be a consultant, digital marketing consultant. Two, I wanted a book deal. Three, I wanted to speak around the world, but specifically, I wanted to go to Australia.
Okay.
So that was 2009. I started the current version of the podcast. By 2010, I had met up with my my networking partner, and we started working. I started professionally doing the digital consulting.
And those were Rosh Media.
Yeah. Well, that was a different company.
Okay.
Rosh Media spun off from that company 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was the name of his company at the time. So I left that 3 years ago. But so I started doing that professionally. Then 2011, I got my my book deal. First book deal. And then 8, 9, 10. 9, 9, 10, 11. So 11, actually, I jumped ahead. But anyway, first year was the digital marketing. Second year, book deal. Third year, I landed in Adelaide, Australia to speak at a conference on social media and digital marketing. Because I had those three things in mind in the focus. But, I have found, for me, it takes 4 years to come back. Both times, at least. I mean, that may not be right for everyone. Because at 2013, I was back at my peak. My career was on the top it had ever been, making the most money I've ever been making. Everything was going great. And in that 1 year, lost my family. Well, I mean, it's through divorce. No one was hurt. Although it feels that way. Both my university positions, well, one I kind of retired from. I decided, hey, I'm going to, and that was Wayne State, but the other one wasn't renewed. And then Synaptics, which was the other company, that I left that through a really conflict of opinion, I guess. I was but it's straight. I was pushed out. So that was a tough year, obviously.
Right.
So where do you come back from that? Everything that you had was now gone within a year. You're wondering which way to go. And it took 4 years to turn that all around. So I left that one company. I started my own. I built that. That's going great now. I had to, rebuild the photography because I've been ignoring the photography, just doing little stuff here and there, right? Because I was working on the other company for 5 years, just doing it kind of on the side. Built that up, and then remarried, have family. I mean, the whole thing with it was all 4 years, and but it was getting in there, not giving up, and just doing the things that we had talked about today, and it works. But and not to say that it'll all not disappear again. That's why we have to appreciate the times that are going well. I am so grateful where I am today. I mean, I'm in probably one of the best places I've ever been. And business is great, but you have to, if I'm not appreciating this moment now, and how are you gonna have the inside to do it again if it all falls apart? And some people just give up. And the biggest thing to say is don't give up. Don't give up. It's gonna break. It's gonna break. That's normal. Just get back in there and do it again.
That's very powerful, Raj, because, I mean, you hear all the time it takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Oh, yeah.
But I've never heard it takes 4 years to come back.
Yeah.
Because people quit, or they kind of move on, or they kind of, but then a lot of people don't think about that. If you quit, if you give this up, it's going to take 4 years to come back. You start at zero.
Yeah, exactly. And I started pretty much zero those both times. And the thing is, it's that first year is just coming back to sea level. You're underwater. Now you got to come back to sea level. Now you gotta build your way up, and things are getting better. As long as things are moving forward, it keeps you going. And you're gonna have your ups and downs. There are always bumps. It's not gonna just one day be perfect, but there's gonna be a point. And this is just, I say 4 years for me. That was for me. I mean, some people can do it in 2 years. Some people it's gonna take them 7. I mean, everyone is different. But no, as long as you continue to move forward and you're doing the things. I have friends who are still complaining today about the things they were complaining 5 years ago. Now, what are they doing different today than they were doing 5 years ago? Absolutely nothing. They're doing exactly what they were doing 5 years ago. It still isn't working, and they're not willing to put in the work to get it done. And that's probably the biggest difference. You just got to put in the work and realize you have to keep it going.
Great stuff. Now, is there anything that still makes you uncomfortable today, and is that a good thing, or something that's still?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with getting uncomfortable. I mean, that's what gets you going. I mean, you get too comfortable. That's how those, as I mentioned, everything was on top of the world. That's when it all broke, know. And so now I'm looking around with the corner of my eyes, waiting. Where's that thing coming? You get too comfortable. So keep challenging yourself. Don't ever think you've made. There is no point where you've made it.
It's not a destination.
No, there are points to pause and to be thankful and to remember that moment and now move on and find something else. And as we mentioned before, those athletes right now, in the Olympics, I mean, they're going to meet their goal and they're going to crash because they had nothing else afterwards. So keep a few things going. You have your core, but always have the next thing in mind so you have something to keep moving and working for. It doesn't end until that last day, when that little beep, beep, beep stops. You know? Exactly.
Like when our career pulse
that's
goes,
when it's done,
When the career pulse stops,
there you go.
Flat lines. So, I mean, beautifully put, and as Will Smith so eloquently put, whenever you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's a great point.
Nice.
So, what's one thing you're always looking to improve upon or feel you could do better?
Well, the answer to that is everything. I'm always, I am purely, in my opinion, I don't think I have any super ability in any one area. It's, whether it's that YouTube channel, I am blue collaring it all the way to where I want to go. Okay. And, the photography, same thing. My whole career is just going to work every day and making it happen. And that alone, showing up, has given me that advantage over a lot of people. Is just keep showing up. And because my skill, I wasn't a great student. Photography, I mean, they did everything they could to kick me out of CCS. But I got out and I graduated out of just pushing it through. I was not a great student there either. Am I the best business person? Am I the best anything? No, but I've been blue collaring it to the point to which, I am getting better and better. And yes, I can say that, out of default and out of pure time, being there long enough, and outlasting that, I can say I'm top of the field in certain areas because I've outlasted people. And so just keep it going. But can I do something better? Yeah, everything. And always examining and seeing how I can do it better, a little bit better each time, small increments, and that's the way you do it.
Okay. Now, looking back, in one way or another, would you change a thing? If so, why? If not, why not?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, there are things, this is what I've told students, and it's very true. The people who work at the largest corporations are there because they asked. The photographer that we talked about earlier who commands $50,000 a day. Why? Because she asked. I mean, you don't get those things unless you ask. And I appreciate, I think my path has been right for me, which has been just a solid, start from here, work. I started in the newspaper, small newspaper, working my way up, building into bigger and bigger things over time rather than straight to the top. And then, go straight to the top, you can certainly crash just as quick.
Yeah.
So I have always had a foundation. I've been comfortable with that. I've always asked myself, should I have set myself higher earlier? And, that's a question I ask myself once in a while, maybe. But, I wouldn't have the people that I have in my life. I wouldn't have the family I have in my life. I wouldn't have, the career, the stability of the career that I have necessarily. I don't know. I mean, you never know. So why question? But if there is something to say to anyone, again, is to, if you're not asking for the big stuff, if you think you have to, well, let me. Can I give a story about?
Yeah, go ahead.
So my first co-author, Lindsay, I met her in New York when I was speaking, and she was a small Twitter person following me who had a lot of energy, and she said, "Hey, I know you're going to be in New York. I want to meet you and a couple other people." And she had so much energy. The moment I met her, she's a year out of photography school. And I pulled out my microphone. I just interviewed her. Like, I just got. I mean,
one of those moments. Yeah.
She's going somewhere. And so, a few months later, it turns out that I was writing my first book that summer. But there's some parts I wasn't that interested in writing, quite honestly, and I had kind of gotten stuck. And a couple of months later, she asked me if she could interview me for her book. And it sounded like it's the exact same book. I'm like. Difference was she had a publisher.
Oh, okay. And
the way she got that is she knocked and she knocked and she knocked. And she kept asking. She's a year out of school. She wants to teach photographers. I was 40-something. Wow. I'm like, you what? You're a year out of school. Well, why don't you do your time? I guess this is where I'm getting with that. Back to that conversation. Yeah. Pay your time, do your dues. And I think that's not required. Some people feel they need to do that and they're more comfortable. That was me. I was more comfortable paying my dues along the way, but it's not a requirement. And it turns out, and I said yes, and I was gracious, and we were going to do an interview. And then she called me, I think it was December 31st. She actually DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, well, could you help me write my book? And I was like, well, sure. It's like, well, the publisher fired my co-author because he really didn't know anything about social media. So I told the publisher I knew you and that, that you would call them. And so I called them and I said, "Hello, this is Ross Shillers," and they're like, "Yeah, we know who you are. Can you get this book done in 3 months?"
Wow.
And I said, yeah. And actually, it was 8 weeks. And we did. And that happened. And so we did that. And I remember those first couple of years, Lindsay and I would go to different parts of the country. We'd meet, we'd speak, and she was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. I said, don't worry, you're on the right track. You got the right thing. Today, Lindsay's just turned 31, and she travels the world, literally the world. I mean, every time I look at her Facebook, she is in either Africa or Asia or somewhere. She's sponsored by all the big. I mean, she's a Canon Explorer of Light. That is like the thing to be if you're going to be a speaker. I mean, and she got that 2-3 years ago, just purely by not saying that she had to pay her dues. She just did it. She worked. And, when she started saying, hey, I want to teach here, she would knock on a door and they'd say no. And then she'd knock on another door and they'd say no. And then she'd knock on the door and say, okay, we'll give you a try. And then she would take that and go to the other place and said, hey, I spoke over here. You think, oh, yeah, you spoke there? Sure. And she built on. That's how she got, the book deal, too. And so the point being, she did what she needed. And now she is an absolute rock star in my field, and here I am. I've had a lot of people in my life that just kind of mentored them, and then they went around me and went rock star. And I'm like, you're not.
I think everybody is kind of.
You wonder, but everybody has their path and their way, and you just take it, at your level, and be happy where you are. I mean, I have so much to be grateful for, and we all do. Just being here, just not worrying about bombs dropping on our heads. I think we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, very humbling. Very that was very inspiring. As far as definitely offered some great perspective on a lot of fundamentals. I think things that we know, but we need to hear more of, or things we think we know, but we need to hear more than once.
Yeah, right. Even I need to hear it once in a while, again and again. But take it a moment at a time. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the process.
So what's next for you? Looking 3 years, 5 years out with your company, with your brand? Where are you looking to take the YouTube channels? What do you have under the?
You said the keyword YouTube. Like I said a year ago, I uploaded every single day for a year on YouTube.
Whew.
And I was nowhere near where I thought I should be after uploading every single day for you. I was about half as far as I thought I should be. But the process and what I learned was so helpful that it allowed me to help other people. And I'm getting better and better, and I know that algorithm so well now. I know it works. I know why that channel, and that's why I made the new channel. I said I gotta hyper niche it if I'm going to get anywhere on that, and I need to have them work together. My future, YouTube is part of it. Continue to build that brand. I ultimately want to do more speaking. I do want to write another book. But I enjoy the work with my clients too. I enjoy taking photographs. I enjoy creating, telling my clients stories. And if I can continue to do that, I'm going to be a happy guy. I have all the elements to, continue the happy career. But I'm an educator at heart. That's how we met many years ago through that kind of relationship. And I love education, and so that's why the podcasting and YouTube and writing is so important to me. And if I can do more of that, that I'm a happy guy.
Awesome, and that really gives a really good perspective as far as kind of like the way you have these different things. It's kind of like who's the author I'm thinking of? He wrote this book called "Real Artists Don't Starve." Jeff Goins.
Oh, okay.
And basically he has this philosophy called the portfolio life. To where we know we have that foundation, that niche, but it's kind of like looking at it like a financial portfolio. You have your mutual funds, you have your stocks, you have your real estate, different things, but you're able to still have it on a palette to where you can utilize these different platforms. Like you said, your 3 goals of the book, of the YouTube channel, of the speaking, and being able to juggle those to where it's not where it's a jack of all trades. It's where you are utilizing your portfolio to different areas. So those are really good. Really good.
There's one book that I didn't mention that I always recommend to everyone.
Okay.
And that is the War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. That is probably the book that whenever I've recommended it to people, they've always come back to me and said, that book just changed my life. And it's true.
The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield?
Yes. It is a tremendously good book. I mean, anybody who is on their own. It was he wrote it for writers, independent writers specifically, but business people, freelance people are picking this thing up, and it's tremendous. It'll point you in the right direction. And a lot of the things that I said today, you know, just it's stuff I've learned and put into play in my life. Just the whole going to work thing, and he talks a lot about resistance. That resistance is the idea that you know you should be doing something, but you don't. Why? Well, that's the resistance. And it's learning how to break through that resistance. And so you need to get up at 7 a.m. to get your work done, but you got up at 10. Why did you do that? That's the resistance. Or you didn't do the work you knew you're supposed to do today. So he talks about you as an independent person, especially if you're a freelancer or something like that, or small business owner, just how to get there and go to work, among many other things. It's just a book full of great wisdom.
Well, that's definitely going on the list for sure. Now, are there any maybe upcoming events or different initiatives? Maybe you're doing like a YouTube webinar coming up, or just anything you could plug real quick.
Sure. My biggest thing in February, it's being edited right now. My Pricing for Photographers guide. That thing, I do that on my blog every year. I've been doing that since 2013. It seems to go really well, and so there's a lot of stuff that's going on around that. So if people are photographers or creatives who are interested in that, but as far as anything else, nope, nothing. That's been my focus until the spring, and then I'll be maybe back on the road a little bit.
Okay, so in February, this is going to be a live webinar or something that's
No, it's actually a blog post, but there'll be YouTube videos and things all around it. It's like it's become an event over the last few years.
Yeah.
It seems like such a simple thing, the pricing for photographers, but it started off with it's a 500, 700 word post, and this year's is 9,000 words. So, it's something that's built on itself through the years. And
okay, so once again, you have the article is going to come out, and you have the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Are you ever looking to maybe long-term develop this into maybe some sort of course or online university, pricing for photographers? There's people I could think of.
Yeah, the YouTube channel. YouTube channel is that, and that similar kind of a direction that I figured that will be an area that I can get into, maybe even Patreon or something like that, where I can develop some courses and additional information around that as that grows. And that's why I've really done that, because I had some clout around the pricing for photography conversation, and so creating a YouTube channel around that really made sense. Actually, before I did the current channel that I have now, I was going to do that before, but I couldn't bear facing only talking about pricing for photographers. I had to have this broad channel, knowing that it may not be as the growth may not be there, but it'll keep me happy.
You got to, still at the end of the day, you got to cast a little wider net. You may catch a few guppies or minnows or
We have a good community. It's a good group of people who are interested, and I enjoy supporting them.
Awesome. Yeah, but definitely keep me posted on that, because I can, or just forward me the article, or I'll follow you online.
It's probably next week, actually. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where can listeners, obviously your YouTube channel, where can they go to find out more about you? You're on YouTube, Facebook, give out your social media, websites.
Yeah,
anything?
So roshsillers.com is my blog. If you want to catch my videos, it's rosh.video will take you to the YouTube channel. If you're interested in the pricing channel, it's rosh.prices, or pricing, Okay, rosh.video will take you to the other YouTube channel. I forgot the forwarding. And just catch me on Twitter. If you have questions, at Rosh Sillers is where you can catch me on Twitter, and I'm happy to connect.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, tell me a little bit about what legacy means to you, how you want your legacy to be remembered, and maybe like just 3 key takeaways as far as our listeners can take with them.
As I mentioned, education, that's going to be my thing all the way. If I was able to influence, and I am grateful to say that, through the years I've had enough interaction with people that said, you made a big difference in what I did related. I've whether it's the photography or the marketing, people around the world have connected with me and said, boy, that what you said really helped, or this guided me through this process. And so I if I can continue to do that and build on that, and leave this earth with knowing that I had my little tiny bit of influence to help people and quite honestly, just put it straight, feed their families. In some really tough careers, whether it's photography or being an entrepreneur, small business person, it's not easy. So if something that I said or helped them through allowed them to do it a little longer, put a little more food on the table, I'm a happy guy, because that made some other people's lives better.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all set. Rosh, thanks for coming in. One and only Rosh Sillars of the Career Pulse Podcast, Season 2, and we're out.
Well, there you have it. Rosh Sillars, a great, amazing episode that we had. It was great really being able to reconnect with him and have him come down. He was one of my photography teachers, actually, when I was in school at Wayne State, and just seeing him go off and do a lot of other different things. It was just really cool, especially talking about high, narrow niches. Really, when he said it takes 4 years to come back, I think that's very deep, because we always hear about, it takes 10 years to become overnight success. And, we hear that all the time. But when people quit or they kind of, put something to the side, it takes 4 years to come back. That's a very powerful message as well, which I don't think you hear about a lot, especially with the mentality of the long game. A lot of creative niches, and especially the book. The book he recommended very highly, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Definitely want to check that out. It's probably on his website. If not, I'm going to maybe put a link in my blog that I send out. And other than that, great episode, and hope you guys continue to get value out of this, the Career Pulse Podcast, as we continue on in the early leg of Season 2. And looking forward to many more episodes ahead. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave a comment, or, if you want to share the episode or someone that would benefit from it, feel free to do that too. I'm your host, Hayward Crawford, the Career Pulse Podcast. I'll see you next time. Out.